Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Well, that didn't take long. The Giants are turning to rookie Jaxson Dart just 3 games into the season. Also, Major League Baseball is switching to Robo-Umps in 2026, and it's the era of parity in the NBA, but the Thunder are ready to repeat as champions.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Found the New York Giants as the latest team to say, we're going to give our rookie first-round quarterback a redshirt season if we can, and then deciding pretty early on, they got to make a change. It's Jaxson Dart time in New York. Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants joins us now. And Patricia, the schedule does not get any easier for this New York Giants offense. So why make this switch now?
I think desperation. If I'm being honest with you, I think it's desperation. Giants are 0-3. The fan base is not happy. Ownership is not happy. No one in 1925 Giants Drive is happy. So you can't fire the offensive line. You can't get rid of all the receivers or the tight ends or the defense. So what do? You try and you ignite a spark with the most important position on the football team, according to Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and that is the quarterback. So, Jaxson Dart, their first-round pick, he's been showing quite a bit of maturity. Looks like he's ready, but is he really ready is the question.
Well, is he really ready to play with this version of the Giants right now, given the state of this offensive line in particular? Patricia, I'll be honest, watching last week against the Chiefs, you could see in the body language from these Giants receivers that they seem to have had enough of Russell Wilson. Am I armchair psychologizing this a little too much?
Well, I think a lot of people did. I mean, look, Russell Wilson, good guy. Russell Wilson is Mr. Positivity, Mr. Unlimited, whatever you want to call him. But was he really a good fit here? Especially down in the red zone. This is something that I observed, not just last week, but also, on other red zone trips. Russell Wilson's not the tallest quarterback, the ideal height that you want in a quarterback. So when you're down in the red zone and you have a bunch of bodies kind of congregating down there, why, how it's going to be difficult for him to maybe see over those taller guys. So I don't understand why they didn't roll him out a little bit, get him to where maybe he could see what was going on. And, that one sequence down in the red zone where he airmailed balls into the locker room, I was just like, oh, this has got to be it for him.
Yeah, once you start becoming a meme on social media with some of the misses in the red zone, it is usually either over or pert near over. Let me ask this question this way: why is Jameis Winston on this team?
He's going to be the long-term backup for Jaxson Dart. I mean, the question I think we've got to wonder about now is if Dart does well, as they hope, do they maybe look to trade Russell Wilson to a quarterback-needy team? Yeah. And if they do,
the Bengals
they've got Jameis Winston under contract for next year. And I think the plan anyway, even before this whole thing went south for the Giants, was to have Jameis Winston be the backup to Jaxson Dart when they flip the switch. So I think that's the direction they could potentially be headed to. And, if Russell Wilson, he's going to be a good teammate. He's going to tell everybody publicly, I'll do whatever's asked of me. But he wants to start. He believes in himself. So what's to say that they don't look to move him to, say, the Saints or maybe even the Bengals, any quarterback-needy team right now, and see if they can't get, a draft pick or two for Russell Wilson, who can still be a good starter, but just apparently isn't going to be a starter here.
The reason I asked it, and the reason I asked it that way, is if the point is winning games, what evidence do we have that Jaxson Dart is more equipped to do that than Jameis Winston? Or is this really more about igniting something within the team, within the fan base, the coaches to ownership saying, no, we're gonna try and go in this direction and see if we can get a little spark here?
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. I mean, people love Jameis Winston. He's a character, a good dude. They like him in the locker room. I think the fan base has embraced him. but the future is Jaxson Dart, and that's what I think people want to see. And, look, I would be, I can't say for sure, but I would not have been surprised if the Giants had stuck with Russell Wilson, if we would have seen maybe another plane flying overhead at MetLife Stadium, or, seats not filled. Now with Jaxson Dart in there, you give the fans something to cling to, that, hey, the future starts now. Let's get excited because this kid looks so good in the preseason. Let's get excited about him.
What are reasonable expectations for Jaxson Dart?
In terms of stats, you mean?
Well, just give me the way that you will be measuring success for him moving forward.
Basically decision making and improving on some of the things that maybe he struggled with back in the summer. For example, there were times when I think he put a little too much zip on the ball, lacked a little touch. There were times when I think he tried to force balls into tight windows that he had no business throwing into. So you want to see minimal mistakes. You want to see good decisions. You want to see a good command of the huddle. And above all, you want to see them score, especially down in the red zone where, I call it the dead zone for the Giants. They just have not been able to score much down there. And, if he can ignite that and get them back on track, I think everybody will be happy.
You can stay up to date all here on the New York Football Giants by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Giants on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. Robo-Umps are coming to the major leagues. Before we get to that, Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State have parted ways. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet, whether it's player props in that moment or building a same-game parlay or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays, or in my case, Mondays. Lions got that with the points. Love that for me. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. He's no longer 40, but he is still a man. He's just no longer the Oklahoma State head football coach. Legendary coach Mike Gundy has been fired after an extremely disappointing start to the season.
And it is obviously national news that Mike Gundy is no longer in charge. There is going to be ramifications coming from this. One of the first ramifications we have seen negatively is the fact that Katie Batman Jones, the number one running back in the state of Oklahoma, who chose Oklahoma State over places like OU, and it caused a very big ruckus in state. He is already decommitted from Oklahoma State. Unfortunately, I've heard of a couple other in-state guys that are set to make an announcement here before too long as well.
Over on the diamond, the Reds took a crucial loss to the Pirates.
Ellie De La Cruz tried, but he can't do it all himself, apparently. I mean, gets on base 4 times and he gets no help. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast, and the vibes are high. We got hashtag PackGABP, and we've got all the best vibes you've ever heard of in the entire season, and hype videos. Doesn't matter. Ellie De La Cruz homers, 2-run homer, 2 singles, walk. He gets on base 4 times. The only time he scored was when he scored himself on a home run. The rest of the lineup had nothing. I mean, Spencer Steer walked a couple of times. He scored off that first walk. He was the other part of that 2-run home run. Miguel Andujar had a hit. TJ Friedel had a hit and a walk, and everyone else stunk. Horrible night from Matt McClain. Matt McClain killed so many rallies tonight, but the double play ball killed so many rallies tonight. Where's the run game? This was a horrible showing by the Reds to start this Pirate series. They're playing not to lose. You can tell me all you want about vibes. The performance says otherwise.
The Mets, who are also jockeying for position with the wild card, fought hard against the Cubs.
The New York Mets just pulled off their biggest comeback win of the season, and in doing so, they once again control their fate in the wild card race. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and we saw this team fight and claw their way back into the game on Tuesday night. David Peterson ended up getting knocked out of the game in the second inning, put the Mets in a huge hole, but a big inning that started really with with getting a break. This team that has had things go against them the last couple of days, like fly balls that get kicked into outfielders' mitts. Well, Dansby Swanson, one of the most sure-handed defenders in baseball, makes an error that extends the inning for the New York Mets in the 5th, and they turn it into a 5-run rally that was capped off with a massive 3-run homer by Brandon Nimmo. That got the Mets to have a reset slate in that game, and then Francisco Alvarez hits the game-winning 2-run homer late, and Edwin Diaz absolutely nails, picks up the 6-out save, strikes out 5 of the 6 batters that he faced, was perfect to close out the game for the New York Mets, and they live to fight another day. And with the Reds' loss, they actually control their destiny once again. Now, there's still a long way to go. 5 games left, and a 1-game lead is still nothing at this stage, but it's a lot better than being even with the Reds and not having the tiebreaker. So this team now is in control again. The question is, what do they do with it this time? Can they keep this up? Can they turn this into a winning streak? Can the Pirates keep helping the Mets out in this race? We're going to find out, but a huge victory for this Mets team that just showed they're not ready to quit on their season just yet.
And Oklahoma's perfect start just hit a big snag. Star quarterback John Mateer, who transferred from Washington State, has vaulted himself into Heisman frontrunner status. He will be sidelined about a month after breaking a bone in his throwing hand. He'll undergo surgery in LA, and while Brent Venables insists Mateer will rehab quickly, it's still a crushing blow for a Sooners team about to dive headfirst into SEC play. In the meantime, sophomore Michael Hawkins Jr. gets the keys to the offense just in time for that little date with Arch Manning in Texas on October 11th. Major League Baseball is ushering in a new era in 2026 with the addition of the ABS system, aka robot umpires. Locked On MLB host Sully shares his thoughts on the move and whether or not it's a good thing for the league.
All right, I'll tell you, what was not a trick question is the big news that I hinted at. And I'm going to pull up one of the articles about this so I make sure I have my facts straight. But the fact of the matter is, Major League Baseball Competition Committee has approved by a vote of 9-2 to implement the ABS challenge system. The automated ball strike system is going into play for the 2026 season. The committee, apparently, this is according to Joel Sherman of the New York Post, and also featured on some of these articles were listed on MLB Trade Rumors. It's an 11-person committee, owners, players, one umpire, and they approved it. And so here's the deal. I've seen this work. When I went to the game in Sacramento last year, not in 2025, but in 2024 to see a River Cats game, I saw this work. And basically, you can challenge a strike. Now, I'm not sure how all of the how this will work out, but basically, you can challenge a pitch. A hitter or a catcher can call immediately to see if a ball or strike call has been incorrected. A team can have 2 challenges. And once a team has 2 unsuccessful challenges, they'll be out of challenges for the remainder of the game. Now, this means that if you're constantly getting them right, then there's no limit. But it also means you better choose them wisely. If you're top of the first, you may not want to blow through them. Now, I have to say, in terms of the ABS system, I think this is long overdue. Absolutely, I think this is long overdue. I have been screaming back long before I was on Locked On Podcast Network, when I was doing my own podcast, and even before that, when I was writing my blog and doing videos, I've been screaming to have that box that you see on the TV that's been going on since 2011, 2012. That should be the freaking strike zone. Uniform. No questions. You should be able to have a strike zone that isn't at the whim of an umpire. Now, you still have the human element of the pitcher. You still have the human element of the hitter. But here's what I don't ever want to hear again. I don't want to hear, oh, this umpire doesn't call the high strike, or he gives a generous zone for the pitcher. Or, you know what? If you're a hitter, you're going to give, if you're a great hitter, you're going to earn that pitch. You know, if you're a great pitcher, you're going to get the call in the corner. You know, it's a low strike. Yeah, it's a makeup call. Oh, the catcher framed it. I don't want any of that. I want balls that go into the strike zone to be called strikes, and balls that go outside the strike zone to be called a ball. I don't ever want to hear about, well, there was a blown called third strike, or the umpire's been all over the map. Shouldn't be all over the map, because we can tell instantly. You know, instant replay was I think, a tremendous innovation. And yes, it took a couple of years to get the kinks out, but I think it works pretty well right now. Granted, there was a weird call in the Red Sox-Blue Jays game today where it looked like one of the Red Sox players got their hand, I think it was Cedar Rafael, got their hand into second base. They reviewed it and it was still called out. Okay, that'll happen from time to time. But do you know what also happens? Calls are reversed in big moments. I don't ever want a Don Denkinger moment. I don't ever want a blown call ending someone's perfect game, or heaven forbid, ending a great ball game, a great postseason game. And the instant replay, while I still would make a few tweaks to it, has worked out pretty well. It's added to the strategy. You hold your hand up, are we going to challenge? Yes. We're going to challenge? No, keep on playing. The game keeps moving. I still think a challenge should never be more than 30 seconds in instant replay. If you can't tell in 30 seconds, let's move on. But in terms of balls and strikes, I would just use the box that you see and strike one, ball one, and there's no arguing. It went in. But this way, at least you can challenge. This way, if there's an egregious moment, there is some accountability. We've had the technology to do this for a long time. This is the equivalent of television stations, you know, using a meteorologist to say, my knee was a little shaky, or my dog started barking, so that's how I know it's going to rain, instead of using the Doppler. But this is using the Doppler, but still asking the meteorologist if his knee is itchy. We've moved on from niche ease or itchy knees. Do you know what? You can call a challenge on that. I'm not going to edit that out. But the fact of the matter is, baseball is best when the calls are accurate. The human element is there, with the pitcher throwing the ball over creation and wild, or being pinpoint control, or the hitter swinging at bad pitches, or the hitter having an absolute eagle eye. I want batters to be rewarded if they take a ball and it's a ball. I want pitchers to be rewarded if they throw into the strike zone. And conversely, I don't want to reward a pitcher for throwing a ball a couple inches off the plate. We saw that today in a critical game between Cleveland and Detroit. A couple, pitches were thrown a little bit outside the strike zone in a big moment. And I think the umpire was being caught up in the moment, kind of like Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun. I don't want that. I don't want to know what kind of strike zone this umpire does. This is not changing like, oh, he likes to add a little more onions and spices to his tomato sauce. We're not talking tomato sauce. We're talking balls and strikes.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. Stay up to date all year on Major League Baseball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On MLB on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, do the Thunder really have what it takes to repeat? The Oklahoma City Thunder are running it back this season, looking to be the first repeat champions in the NBA since Golden State back in 2018. And Locked On NBA host Matt Moore and Hayes discuss whether the Thunder really have what it takes to go back-to-back, or if another team will prevent OKC's potential dynasty from starting.
With the reigning champion Oklahoma City Thunder, who have a chance to become the first repeat champions since 2018. We've seen teams across the league load up to try to beat them this summer. So after this offseason, Matt, do you still consider the Thunder as the obvious favorites to win the championship?
On paper, yes. They are on paper the best. And you could say, like, how can you say they're on paper, Matt? They just won the title. What I mean by that is just that, look, I do believe that we're in an era of parity. It's not just the CBA. It's not just the fact that we haven't had a repeat champion since 2018. There is like dynamics of roster distribution, I think, that's causing this, as well as the difficulty of keeping guys healthy for an entire year. And having covered a title team in Denver, I saw the year after what it took out of them. And it does. Like, winning the title takes something out of you because you play so long, so hard, so tough. Nobody's better equipped to repeat out of the past 7 champions than OKC because of their youth. But, you know, it's going to be harder this year. It's harder this year. And if they win it, it gets even harder when they try and go for the three-peat. It's just really difficult. And I do tend to believe that right now in sports, I don't look at this Thunder team, as good as they are, and they are great. I don't look at them the way I looked at the Warriors. I don't look at them the way that I looked at the Heat in 2012 and 13, and even going back to 11 when they made the finals. I don't look at them as like an all-time team yet. If they get there, then I will be like, oh, they were that, and I didn't, they proved they were that. But I'm going to enter with a healthy amount of skepticism, Hayes, about the ability for this Thunder team to do something that these other teams who were also awesome couldn't accomplish.
And finally, Jason Tatum isn't ready to let Celtics fans write off this season just yet. Recovering from an Achilles injury that happened in May, Tatum claims he hasn't ruled out returning in 2025 or 2026. He's been rehabbing 6 days a week, staying in touch with fellow NBA stars Damian Lillard, DeJounte Murray, and Tyrese Halliburton, all dealing with the same injury. Boston opens against the Sixers on October 22nd, and while it's still a long shot, Tatum hints at a possible return, and that could be enough to keep hope alive in Boston. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, an NFC West showdown between the Cardinals and the